to finish out the Indy 500. That final restart is definitely chaotic. I'm surprised that there was not any, crashes or anything. I feel like every time we've seen anyone do this, with F1 did it in Australia, just whatever chaos erupted, in the first couple corners of that lap happened last year with, Sage Karam spinning off a turn 2. I think that, this trying to get a finish thing, and it happens every year with NASCAR. I swear, I don't even know how they managed to get a finish some years for Daytona, because, just the continuous just trying to get a finish thing seems like it always yields always yields some type of crash. So the actual restart, Ericsson was ahead, and then Newgarden and I believe Ferrucci, and then Rossi and Palou. I've already talked about what happened with Rossi and Palou. Palou jumped the restart, allegedly. I haven't seen really any videos of it, but I'm going off what Rossi said, and got ahead of Rossi, and it was hard to pass at that point. But Ericsson led them down into 1, and through 2, Ericsson was ahead. Ericsson was, doing the, snaking, dragon, whatever you call it, maneuver on both straightaways. He was leading. So down the backstretch, Ericsson keeps doing that, but Newgarden gets enough of a toe or whatever to get alongside of him and gets past him into turn 3. Which, here's the thing, looking at the maneuver they keep doing, I'm surprised it's not faster for whoever's in second to just not try to toe off them. Because, here's the thing, Ericsson has no toe. So, if you're Newgarden on the backstretch, Ericsson's going to sit and weave. Unless here's the thing, unless they stop weaving. If they stop weaving, it's hard to figure out exactly what to do. But if they were, if Ericsson sits and weaves, and if you're Newgarden and you just go, take a straight path or whatever, I imagine you're going to be able to get past him anyways. So whoever's in second place at the end of the race, I wonder if that's the thing someone should try at some point, just not doing anything about it. I also think that IndyCar might need to do something about this. It's okay, it's a thing that everyone's doing now, but at some point I think there needs to be some level of, hey, let's address the, swerving all over the straight line path. But anyway, Newgarden got past Ericsson into 3, led through 3 and 4. Coming out of turn 4, Newgarden took a very narrow line and, swerved all the way down below the, dotted pit lane entry thing, probably, only a few car lengths away from the inside wall, and then swerved back right in enough time to not hit the pit attenuator. Stayed ahead of Ericsson with probably the most obnoxious dragon maneuver I've ever seen, and Newgarden won the Indy 500. I think with the two things I've talked about with Ericsson, the taking out a ward, again, that's my opinion, and the jumping the restart, again, my opinion. Feel free to disagree with that, and, if you have comments on it, I'd love to hear them. But I feel like Newgarden drove a much cleaner, much more reasonable end of the race. I think from the perspective of who deserved to win at the end of that race, I'd say it was Newgarden. Because, first of all, he won straight up. He dealt with whatever crap IndyCar was trying to throw at all of them and managed to win. That was, I think, a big, thing, is who actually won the race. Ericsson, and I understand how Ericsson could be upset, because first of all, he's, you're not going to take responsibility for anything that anyone says you do, so I'm not too, confused by Ericsson not having any comment on what happened with Pato, and Ericsson obviously was upset because, he felt he had won the race after the second red flag restart. And also, people were saying that Ericsson was just being a crybaby because he benefited from this last year. That's not the case, because at the end of last year's race before the red flag, he was something like 5 seconds ahead of whoever was in second. So Ericsson hasn't benefited from red flags in the past. He's actually won in spite of them. But I think what happened with Ericsson this year, I think he had made enough moves that if IndyCar was really trying to still, call penalties or whatever and really respect the rules over just let's see whatever happens on the track. I think Ericsson probably would have seen himself, going to the back multiple times, or, giving up positions, or I don't know what the situation for jumping a restart is. But whatever happened, I imagine if race control was, doing their job instead of throwing red flags, that's not really a derogatory comment. It's more of just a, I don't know what else to say. I think that Ericsson probably would have gotten penalized at some point, but I could see how he's mad. I don't really agree with it. But yeah, I think Newgarden deserved to win this race. I feel like, as annoying as the finish was, as much as I don't agree with it, I'm glad Newgarden won. I think that in the future, the amount of red flags, the snaking, the jumping of restarts at the end of races needs to be addressed, because I think it's getting to the point where you're messing with the integrity of the actual race to try to appease some non-IndyCar fan who doesn't really know what's going on. And it's not really derogatory. I'm not trying to say that anyone that's not an IndyCar fan shouldn't watch or shouldn't really, have any stake in anything. I think we're trying too hard. I think there needs to be some point where it's like, okay, there's racing and there's entertainment. At some point, this can't be the WWE. This can't be, NASCAR on steroids or anything. I think that at some point, we need to address, making the race not look completely, the end of a race, looking completely different from what it did 5 years ago. Because, in 2019 was the year Pagenaud started the snaking thing. I can't really remember IndyCar, maybe 2014, throwing red flags to try to get a finish, though. If I remember right, Townsend Bell's crash in 2014 that brought out that red flag was a pretty big incident, and while they probably could have cleaned it up under yellow if it was debatable and it was going to, help the finish of the race and give him 10 laps instead of 2, maybe. I don't, I'd have to really look back at that race again and see, how bad it really was. But I think we've gotten more and more extreme on this recently, where if there's a red flag within 10 laps or something, or if there's a yellow flag within 10 laps of the end of the race, we're just going to red flag it so that, we can get as many laps in and get a finish. I think that needs to stop happening in the future, because I've seen a lot of people that are really, invested in racing, invested in the integrity of racing, don't like that. And personally, I don't really either. I think at some point there needs to be a line of, hey, we're trying to keep people safe. We're trying to make this not look like a farce, whatever. It's entertainment, but it's also a sport. So I think, at some point, that's probably a thing IndyCar should address. They probably won't, because, again, it gets clicks, it gets TV ratings that, the Indy 500 came down to a one-lap shootout, and, there was a pass for the lead at the end of the race. That's cool, whatever. I don't really like that. But yeah, that's about all I have to say for the finish of the race. I'm just going to go kind of down the results and talk about everyone or, most people's race throughout the day. So, obviously, I've said a decent amount about Josef Newgarden, obviously winning the race. He had a really good month of May. I think with how Penske equipment has done in qualifying, I think Newgarden did pretty well. He was 17th. So, I think, Penske has some stuff to address with qualifying, but I think Newgarden did okay with that. When it came to race pace throughout the month, I think Newgarden was really fast, obviously coming up through the field from 17th. It's been quite a while since someone outside of the top, 10, 12 range has won the race. So Newgarden coming from 17th was a pretty big thing with the cars that we have. Really good race week from Newgarden. Definitely still a respectable performance, barring the last 10 laps from Ericsson. And even then, I disagree with what happened. I wouldn't really call him a dirty driver. I think, it's the end of the race. You're going to do stuff you don't typically do. I think Ericsson, I'm still fine with Ericsson being second. Santino Ferrucci in P3 that's really big for AJ Foyt Racing and Santino. He's I think he's gotten better every year he's done the 500. And this year, I mean, he didn't put a wheel wrong during the race. He didn't really put a wheel wrong the whole month. Qualified fourth, finished the race third, was up there the whole time. Great race from Santino. I'm sure he was upset with the result, but third is definitely respectable with how, with how the last few laps went. I think it was very hard to come up with a situation where Santino could have, done much better than he had done. I mean, again, the battle for the lead is just going to be insane, and he made it through everything. Alex Palou, I've discussed that restart, but Alex Palou, he led, the first, like 3/4 of the race or something. Or not led, but was up swapping the lead for like the first, probably up until like lap 100 or something. And then he was involved in the incident with Rinus VK on the pit lane, where through no fault of his own, he got hit exiting his pit box. I think the recovery from Alex Palou was really impressive. So I think, I'm sure Palou would have loved to do much better, but getting, to fourth through all the stuff we have, starting in the back with a damaged car, great job by Palou. Alexander Rossi in fifth place, he was like just out of contention all day. He was like, behind, like the first car behind whatever you'd call the lead group at a given time, past, like lap 50 or something. Rossi was just always in contention and never right there. But a good day from Rossi. Dixon, gosh, I swear, he always manages to be right around the top end at the end of the race, even if he's nowhere all day. Started in sixth, and then had a vibration issue. Started probably lap 15 or something, and by the end of the stint, they had pulled up an onboard on the TVs on the track. You could literally see the car visibly oscillating while driving. That must have been awful to drive, and people are having issues with vibrations all day during full stints. Like Dixon, after recovering from being in that spot, able to make it up to sixth, definitely didn't have the greatest car, definitely not the best Dixon run ever, but pretty respectable run from him. Sato, P7, there's not much I have to say about him, because I feel like he was very quiet all day. He wasn't really there, but a pretty respectable result from him. Connor Daly making it all the way up to 8th. He was kind of mid-pack all day. Pretty good result from him, just making it through all of the carnage happening at the end of the race. Colton Herta was kind of loosely in contention. I'd describe him as in a similar place to Rossi, where he was like just outside of whatever was happening at a given point in the race. Had an incident with Romain Grosjean exiting his pit box probably later in the race, probably second to last stop. Had to serve a drive-through because of that. Pretty respectable recovery from Colton Herta. Good job by him. On to 10th place, Rinus VK. I've already talked about what happened with him and Palou. It's just odd, and I don't know what it is about it, but it's been a thing for quite a while that it just feels like the Carpenter cars lack race pace. Because, they've never really had any issue in qualifying. Back to 2012, 2013, Carpenter was winning poles in multiple years in a row with, back in the, Fuzzy's Vodka days. Carpenter's cars have always been fast. For some reason, they've always been able to crack the code for qualifying. They just need race pace. And I think this thing is becoming as much of an issue for Rinus now because he's their kind of main guy, that's become less Ed Carpenter and more Rinus recently. I think that at some point, someday, Carpenter is going to, hit it on a race car, and, they're going to be able to start, second and go out and win something. It just, I want it to happen so bad, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. Gosh, Carpenter, that's the thing. 11th place, Ryan Array, which it felt like a pretty quiet day for Ryan. He, racing with a new team in his first Indy 500 in 2 years. Pretty respectable day from him, finishing on the lead lap in 11th place. No major incidents. I don't know. I'm interested to see how long Ryan sticks around and, what all he's able to do in that time. 12th place, Callum Ilott. Gosh, quite a recovery from him. The month he's had, the, qualifying chaos, trying to even make the race, getting in 27th. 12th place for Callum Ilott on the lead lap, finishing the race, is quite an achievement. It's not the greatest month for them. Hopefully, with, some more time to kind of figure stuff out at Indy, next year, Juncos can come back and really, try to hit the nail on the head. Just great recovery drive for the whole month from Callum. Really respectable by him. 13th place, Devon DeFrancesco. I feel like I didn't hear his name at all day. Decent finish for him. Scott McLaughlin, 14th, who, whether it was, he did it on carb day and he did it on, during the race, with Kanan, he just keeps running into these situations with miscommunications where he'll hold the bottom line and want someone to go around him on the outside, and something happens and whoever it is goes down to the inside. It happened with Kanan. Kanan got all 4 tires into the grass, and then at that point McLaughlin was like, oh crap, he's on my inside, and then they moved over. Kanan's race almost ended driving through a patch of grass. It's amazing he didn't spin. But as for Scott, I'm sure, happy with his teammate winning. Not a big day for him. 15th place, Elio Castroneves. Definitely not the result that a guy like Elio would want out of a 500. Pretty quiet day from him. Pretty quiet month. I mean, I feel like I didn't really hear the name Elio Castroneves much. It's, just interesting. 16th place, Tony Kanaan. I've already talked about his incident with McLaughlin. For his last race, first of all, his last race ending battling with Elio, is just a fitting end, a good end for TK. If this is actually his last race, because I swear that question got asked so many times at the race. But I think, assuming this is TK's last race, I think it's a very respectable end for him. Not the result he might have wanted, but he's doing stuff with a new team and a one-off entry. Fine day for TK. He's got a great career to look at, and respectable. 17th place, Marco Andretti, another guy that I feel like he didn't really get mentioned very much. I mean, he survived, which a lot of people can't say. But, it is what it is. Jack Harvey, who was the last driver he was the first driver a lap down, because Marco Andretti was the last car on the lead lap. Jack Harvey, first car lap down. I think just with what's happened with Rahal and Christian Lundgaard was right behind him, 2 laps down. Rahal has just not had a very good month this year. Between Graham getting bumped and, having to, fight in qualifying over which car is barely fast enough to make the race. Well, you've got some much smaller teams that are able to get in completely fine. Just not a good month from Rahal. I think people have talked about the new technical director they had hired as an F1 guy. They're quick on road courses. They just need to figure out their oval program a bit more, which needs to be a priority at some point. I talked about Lundgaard a second ago in P19. Same thing for him. Rahal just needs to get stuff figured out. Decently quiet month from Lundgaard. 12th place, Ed Carpenter, which, even from qualifying, he qualified 13th. It's not the result I'd expect from Ed. He ended up getting caught out in the big crash on the front stretch on the restart. So just kind of a disappointing end for Ed for this race. It's just odd. 21st place, Benjamin Peterson. Same thing, got caught out in that incident. It's his rookie race. I think he still won Rookie of the Year. So I guess positive, but he wasn't nearly as in contention as his teammate Ferrucci was, though decently still respectable race for him. His rookie year. 22nd, Graham Rahal, who really had no shot from the start. Is ironic that Graham misses the race and then goes in and fills in for someone else, and then he can't even get off the grid, and whatever. He did end up running 195 laps and really was running the entire race 1 lap down, kind of desperately trying to get back on the lead lap until the crash after the second red flag, where it looked like he had just called it at that point. He probably could have gotten past Carpenter and Peterson, and I think he actually would have been ahead of Lundgaard too, but just I think at that point, especially the team being a one-off entry, it was not worth it to try to find over, 2 or 3 points for, whatever chaos was going to happen on the last lap. So I guess a good call by Rahaal's team to just cut it at that point. 23rd, Will Power, who had gotten, I believe he had, I don't know why Will Power's there. I forget exactly what happened to him. It says he was still running, so I don't think he was involved in any incident. They might have, I wonder if they just cut it at some point, similar to what Rahaal did, and just, weren't very in contention and just decided we're not going to deal with this. 24th, Pato O'Ward. Gosh, I mean, similar to last year, just a pretty devastating end for him. O'Ward, he was very close to winning last year, and he was very close to winning this year, and got caught out with the crash on lap 192. Simon Pagenaud and Augustin Canapino, both innocent bystanders. Gosh, Pagenaud got, I believe he had gotten taken out by, it was McLaughlin, I think, was trying to check up, and I think it was, so Pagenaud checked up quicker than McLaughlin did, and McLaughlin ended up hitting the back of him and spinning him. So, just an unfortunate end for Pagenaud. Canapino, I think, had gotten some type of debris stuck under his car. Is odd because, I was looking on the video boards as it was happening because they had it pulled up right there, and Canapino just, ran into the back of O'Ward at, 10 miles an hour. It was very odd to watch. I was kind of concerned for a second that, I didn't know if that was he'd gotten knocked unconscious and couldn't control the car thing. I think what it ended up being is there was some type of debris stuck under the car that had gotten the front wheels, off the ground, and probably the back wheels too, to where he was just gliding on something and couldn't really control the car at all, because they had it was a roll hoop cam of the car that they could show that he was trying to stop it from hitting O'Ward and he just couldn't. Is a very odd situation, but disappointing end for Canapino. Though a really good month from him. I think if he wouldn't have gotten caught out by that, would have been a really good finish. So good month from Canapino. 27th, Felix Rosenqvist. Obviously the incident that took him out was his fault. It's still a really unfortunate end for him. He was similar to O'Ward, not to the extent O'Ward was, but very close. He was in contention all month. And I think, slightly disappointing end from Felix Rosenqvist. Kyle Kirkwood was just an innocent bystander in the Felix Rosenqvist crash. So, it sucks for Kyle, but, it is what it is. 29th place, David Malukas had... There's some type of incident. He's listed as being out on contact. I assume that was some type of incident either on pit road or maybe some type of contact with someone on the track. Not really listed what happened. Sometime around, I guess, lap 160, he just kind of went down to his pit box and sat there, and that was the end of the race. They didn't even move his car during the 3 red flag breaks or whatever, or just whatever. He was just kind of sitting in his box. The car was just sitting there unoccupied, which was slightly odd. For David, it wasn't a big standout month or anything. It was just kind of what it was. Roman Grosjean, P30, got caught out in turn 2 in the same place he did last year, and got taken out by himself. Just car got loose and hit the wall. Stinger Rob, making it to lap 90. He was trying to get past Graham Rahal, who was a lap car, had gotten to the outside. So I think what happened was that Stinger Rob was in front and Graham Rahal had made a move on him to the inside because Rahal was trying to, pass people and try to get laps back. Stingray got caught out by that a bit and was not, ready for it, and got, kind of a lane and a half up above the white line. And at that point, going 90 laps into the race with no ability to clean the track, he was stuck in the marbles and, ended up getting taken out from that. Sucks for Stingray. Is, not the greatest race for him. 32nd, RC Enerson, which they made it 75 laps. They had a mechanical issue that ended up taking him out of the race. I couldn't entirely figure out exactly what that was. It was slightly odd, but, good month for the Able Motorsports group, just kind of dipping their toes into Indy. I don't really think the hope there was results. I think the hope there was to, get experience and hopefully, get towards, for Jacob Abel getting a, either a full-time ride in IndyCar or an Indy 500 only entry possibly in the next year or two, which was helped by Enerson having a chassis that they could use. A good month for them. They comfortably made it into the race. Obviously the result probably sucks, but that probably wasn't their main focus. 33rd Catherine Legg had an incident on pit road during the first cycle of pit stops where she had dumped the clutch and exiting her box had spun and lost control and hit the inside wall. It was pretty much right in front of where I was sitting. And it was funny because there was a safety, there was an IndyCar official right there that she almost hit. It was kind of scary, but the official guy was able to kind of jump over the wall and everything was okay there. Catherine just ended up taking out a toe link doing that, which is pretty easy to do. Really a similar thing to what Rinus VeeKay did, just VeeKay had Pelot to hit and Catherine Legg didn't. So it was an unfortunate end for Catherine. I think the Rahal team all month, it's just not the greatest month for Catherine in her return. Obviously, she hasn't raced here for 10 years. It's definitely probably a different environment for her to adjust to for, kind of figuring out, the environment. I think not the greatest month for anyone at Team Rahal, but that's what it is. So, anyway, final wrap-up stuff. I think that, this was a pretty good month, I think, for the race. I was still definitely a fun race to watch. I think fun is probably the best way of describing it. And there's two ways of looking at it, because, again, it's fun to watch the, crazy finishes that we get. It's definitely not, typical racing. If you want to get into the racing purism argument, which I hate to do, but I kind of feel like I have to in this situation. It's such an odd end to the race that, I think has left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. It'll definitely be interesting to see what IndyCar decides to do off of, this type of, way of trying to at all costs get a finish. I don't really like that. I'll just be interested to see what IndyCar ends up doing in the next few years. If there's a yellow on lap 185, are we, gonna call a red flag so that we can make it as many laps as possible? I don't know. I don't really like that. I think there needs to be some point where we can finish a race under yellow, and that's okay. That's how racing works. That's how racing has worked for the past 110 years. Takuma Sato won the 2020 race under yellow. It's a thing that very recently has been a thing. So I think at some point IndyCar needs to be okay with the fact that a race can end under yellow. But that's honestly about it. Thank you guys all so much for watching. It's been a great month. I wasn't really able to cover nearly as much as I was wanting to. I've had a lot of stuff going on. But, it was definitely really an enjoyable month to watch. So I don't know what all I'll be able to do in the next few weeks. I've got a review of some cars that I picked up at the race that I'll be doing. I've got 6 that I'm going to review. So, so those will be coming out in the next few days. I think I'm going to be doing stuff for Detroit. I don't actually know, because I've got a lot of stuff going on over the summer with, school and a variety of other things. I'm probably not going to be able to cover race weekends for most of the summer. I typically end up covering 2 or 3 race weekends all year anyway. So I'll try to step that up at some point. I don't know. But yeah, that's about all I have. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see y'all whenever. Bye.